What was your reaction to learning about this drone activity over a U.S. Air Force base?
Yeah, I'm real concerned about it. I don't mind telling you. I mean, you hear all these issues about who's coming across our southern border, and there's millions of people, and many of them could be potentially adversaries to the United States. And then you hear things like this because you have to understand that when there's drones in the air, that means that there's operators on the ground very nearby. So the question is, who's operating these things? Because they have to be, just a handful of kilometers away from these things, because the drones don't have that far of a range for the most part, except for some of the strategic ones. But regardless, the fact that these things are going on there, and whether they show hostile intent is irrelevant. The fact that they're operating there looks like, to me, a standard military reconnaissance operation, to where you test out the enemy's ability to detect you. You see how far you can go. You see what are the difficulties. Are there any electronic warfare kinds of issues that you have to worry about, et cetera? And it doesn't look to me like that there were any, because if we had some good EW capabilities, those things would have been knocked out of the air by that. So
Yeah.
I'm concerned about it, and we just want to have to see if this is going to be a trend and if it's going to happen elsewhere.
And I want to zero in on something you just said there, the fact of, this could be trying to figure out how well they can be detected. So why do you think we're just hearing about this now? Do you think it was also just detected now, or it was detected at the time, but for some reason we're not hearing about it till basically the end of March?
Yeah, and I wondered what the circumstances were around why it's coming out now. I haven't seen that yet, but it's a question. I mean, you would think that that's probably something that they would want to keep quiet, the Department of Defense, while they work very hard and very aggressively to ascertain, where this came from, who was behind it, but much more than that. And this needs to be applied across our bases across the country. We need to get some countermeasures in place quickly. This is something that's just really disappointing to me, because I've been advocating for counter drone capacity literally since the 2008, 2009 timeframe, because it was clear that's where it was going. And of course, we see all the things going on in the Russia-Ukraine war to do with drones, and electronic warfare is one of the best defenses that both sides are using against the other. And we seem to be lagging behind on that. We need to put a lot more effort in on that.
It certainly seems so. And, I said at the top of this that a base spokesperson says none of these drones appeared hostile. But what does that really mean, Lieutenant Colonel? And how would we
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I mean, that's genuinely irrelevant at this point, because clearly somebody's testing capacities. It's not going to show a hostile intent until they're ready to attack. And we don't have any idea, what that might be or what their criteria could be. My concern is, and the biggest threat, I think, would be that some nefarious actors are saying, in the event that they ever get into a fight with the United States, then they'll activate those drones, and they'll activate those agents, whoever's operating them, to be able to then take out assets on the ground in the United States so that they can't be used elsewhere. I mean, that's the biggest risk.
And no entity has taken credit for these drones so far. Who or what do you think is behind them? Or do you think it could be potentially a mix of more than one thing, one entity?
Well, yeah, and I mean, literally the possibilities are endless. I mean, the obvious possibilities of China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, some of these others could be cartels for all we know. I mean, literally, there's so many that it could be, but we don't know that. Of course, no one's going to claim responsibility for it. I think it's odd that they're even making that statement, that no one's claimed responsibility. Well, obviously, because they're doing something covert to try and figure out how that they can potentially do something to us in the future, and most likely. So they're not going to take credit for it, because they want to keep the element of surprise alive.
And my last question for you, always trying to move this forward. Is there a way to prevent this type of thing from happening? How does the U.S. protect itself?
Right now, there's not. There is no way to protect it. I mean, it's self-evident, the fact that it continued to happen there, and even on the ground in Russia and Ukraine, where they are both fighting an existential threat, where they hold nothing back in their R&D operations and manufacturing, and even they're still struggling with how to prevent drones from flying, and then how to make offensive drones go. So that's a big issue there. But like I said, we're behind the ball, and not just for the base security. This is something for the future warfare that's only going to get more complex as it goes forward. And we need to be really jumping on this ball.
Yeah, we